Have you ever heard of the local woman whose baby tragically died, leaving her restless spirit to wander the living realm in search of her lost child? Of course you have, because every town in the world seems to be suffering from the same spirit infestation. You, my friend, have encountered an urban legend. Crazy, spooky stories that almost sound like they could be true. Almost. And they're always presented as though they are true. A friend of a friend saw this, a friend of a friend did that. They have the uncanny ability to spread like wildfire, and in our modern age, when they're no longer restricted to story time around the campfire, urban legends have gone truly global. So while we're here, why don't we take a look at some of the creepiest urban legends you're likely to encounter? Here are just 4 of my favourites. Number 1. The Vanishing Hitchhiker. 2 friends were halfway through a long car journey when they saw a young woman trying to hitch a ride by the side of the road. They pulled over, and the woman asked if they could offer her a ride home, which was just a few miles up the road. The friends agreed, and the woman climbed into the back seat of the car. When they were almost at their destination, the driver turned to the back seat to tell their passenger that they were nearly there, but to his surprise, he found the seat empty. The hitchhiker had vanished without a trace. Bewildered, the friends climbed out of the car. When they arrived at the house the woman had wanted driving to, they knocked on the door and asked about the woman, only to learn that a woman by her description had indeed lived at that house several years earlier. They asked where the woman was now, and were unprepared for the chilling answer. According to the current resident of the house, the woman matching their description had died several years ago in a car accident. They were told that many people had reported seeing her ghost by the side of the road, attempting to catch a ride home. Number 2. Railroad Ghosts. 2 friends made a stop during a car journey because they'd heard a local ghost story and wanted to check it out. The story said that a school bus had stalled on the railway tracks and a train was travelling incredibly fast, allowing no time to evacuate the bus. All the children on board were killed. The 2 friends found the exact place where the bus had stalled and parked their car right on the rail tracks. They turned off the engine and waited patiently for something spooky to happen. Although they were excited about the prospect, neither of them had seriously expected anything ghostly to happen. They were therefore surprised when the car suddenly began to move of its own accord. They sat there, frozen by fear, as the car slowly moved forward by itself. Once the car was entirely off the rail tracks, it stopped. After a few minutes, the 2 friends gathered the courage to climb out of the car and investigate, but neither of them were prepared for what they were about to discover. On the long drive they'd had, the car had accumulated a great amount of dust, and visible in this dust on the back of the car were 24 sets of handprints, as if the car had simply been pushed off the tracks by human hands. The handprints were all the size of children's hands. Number 3. The Clown Statue. A married couple were enjoying a rare night out when they got a call from their babysitter. Having just put the children to bed, the babysitter was asking permission to watch television in the parents' bedroom, the only television in the house with satellite TV. Of course, the mother said. There was just one more thing. The babysitter was creeped out by the disturbing, life-size statue of a clown that stood in the child's bedroom, so she asked the mother if she could throw a blanket over the statue to put her mind at ease. "Wake up the children and get out of the house," the mother demanded abruptly. "We'll call the police." The babysitter was confused. "What are you talking about?" "Get out of the house right now," the mother insisted. "We don't have a clown statue." Number 4. Room for one more. A young woman was visiting her aunt at the old manor house that she lived in. It was a large, beautiful house with a long driveway leading to the door. The young woman's bedroom was at the front of the house, and her window overlooked this driveway. On one cold, moonlit night during her journey, she was sleeping lightly when she was suddenly roused by the sound of wheels and hooves outside. She wondered what on earth was going on outside. Dragging herself out of bed, she made her way across to the window and peered through the curtains to the driveway below the bedroom. There on the driveway was an old Victorian-era hearse, complete with 2 black horses at the front. Although she could only make out the basic silhouette of the horses, she could see the hearse clearly. Rather than a coffin, the hearse seemed to contain living people, almost a dozen of them, squashed into the back of the vehicle. The woman couldn't see any faces, just a mess of arms and legs filling the hearse. Even more clearly, she could see the driver of the hearse, a tall, lanky figure in a pinstripe suit whose aged, pallid face stared directly at her. She was frozen by fear. And then the man opened his mouth. "There's room for one more," he said in a sinister voice, a voice which the woman heard clearly, despite the window and considerable distance between them. The woman shuddered and pulled the curtains closed, stepping away from the window and shaking with nerves. She waited 10 minutes or so before finally conjuring up the courage to peek through the curtains once again. The hearse was gone. Had she imagined it? Was she so tired that a realistic dream had fooled her entirely? She climbed back into bed and tried to forget what had happened, but that proved difficult. In time, however, the woman drifted back to sleep. The next day, the woman refrained from mentioning the event to her aunt. She had come to the conclusion that it must have been a dream and tried to forget it. Eventually, months passed and the dream slipped from her mind. Then, a few months later, the woman was shopping in a mall when she headed for the elevator. She found it quite packed, with a dozen or so people squashed into the elevator. A man at the front stepped back slightly and said, "There's room for one more." The woman's heart sank as the dream came rushing back to her, and she instantly turned and hurried away from the elevator, terrified. She then heard a large crashing and echoing screams somewhere in the distance. Later that day, she would discover that there had been an accident in the elevator. The elevator had dropped down the elevator shaft, plummeting several floors and killing several people, injuring even more. The woman had a narrow escape that day by turning away from the elevator. Well, there you have it. 4 creepy urban legends to keep you up at night. If it's any comfort, they're probably not true. Probably. If you enjoyed this video, please give us the dopamine hit we so desperately crave by clicking that thumbs up button. And if you want to enjoy more content like this, click subscribe and check out our past videos. Check it out, turn out your lights, and enjoy. Unless you're chicken.